I'm excited to be here with you today. Recently, Kamala pulled a bit of a Mr. Bean in terms of trying to copy the test scores from somebody else, a bit of plagiarization. We are going to go over this, but also a trend I have noticed that all of these DEI individuals, these individuals who are in these positions of unearned power and authority due to their gender and ethnic background, plagiarization scandals just seem to be happening over and over and over again at a really high rate. So, one, I want to document the phenomenon, and then I want to explore why the phenomenon might be happening, while also exploring the specific case that happened with Kamala Harris. And before I go into all of this, as somebody who has their background in the sciences, if you are not a trained academic, you might be like, plagiarization, what's the big deal there? In the sciences, historically speaking, it would be worse for your career to plagiarize something than to grape someone.
Come here, kid! I'm gonna tie you to the radiator and grape you!
Okay. It was like bore into me when I was studying in the sciences. It is better to, like, in a testing environment, walk over, yank someone's test from their hands and put it in the box after scribbling out their name and writing your own than it is to attempt to plagiarize. And then there are even within that, there's different categories of plagiarization, with the very highest bad category of plagiarization being plagiarization from Wikipedia. Because that's seeing both plagiarizing and plagiarizing like an idiot from the most obvious source.
Originally called the Madison Square Garden Center.
Is that from Wikipedia?
No.
I just used it as a starting point to get a general idea, and then I went to scholarly sources.
Show me your browser history!
Yeah, for unrelated reasons, I would actually prefer not to do that.
Yeah,
And
with like the lowest form of offense being auto plagiarization, which after being taught that in college, I was like, wait.
Yeah, auto plagiarization can get you kicked out of school, but it's unlikely to, well, that could end your career. Sorry, people might not know what auto plagiarization is. Auto
Because apparently
plagiarization,
people don't care about cheating anymore.
yeah, people basically stop. Well, when they realize that the rules might also apply to Black women. Sorry, I don't mean to be too offensive there, but that's basically what happened. They're like, oh, we've got this protected class. And sorry, when I say Black women, I mean Black women who progressives consider real Black women, not conservative Black women. The rules still apply to them because they don't have their Black card anymore. As Biden said, if you don't vote for us, you ain't Black. So I'm not saying Black women as in women whose skin color is Black. I'm saying Black women TM. You know, the ones who agree with all of the mainstream progressive opinions. I realized I forgot to describe what autoplagiarization is. Autoplagiarization is when you plagiarize yourself. So an example of where someone I knew got in trouble for this is they had written a fan fiction and they had posted it on a fan fiction website. And then later they took parts of it and incorporated it into a story that they were publishing within a college context. And the college plagiarism checker found their own fan fiction and said, look, you plagiarized from this. And proving that they had written it did nothing to help their case that they had plagiarized. And it was counted by the school rules as an official plagiarism. And it's wild to me that, you know, historically, if you were white, you could get kicked out of school, you know, college, have your entire life ruined over this. And yet, you know, when you aren't, it's considered hardly an issue at all. And I think the reason why people aren't freaking out about this is everybody knows. Everybody knows it's not a real thing. Like, that's why they're like, oh, it wasn't some major violation, because we all knew that if you look like Kamala Harris, you're allowed to do this. And if you're like, oh, but what about Trump's felony conviction? The problem is that actually fortifies the point I'm making here rather than undermines it. The people who view Trump's felony conviction as a strike on him versus further edifying him in the eyes of the masses, I think are people who have intentionally not engaged with information around the case. Just so you know, a bit of background here. The case was around falsifying business records, which is a misdemeanor in New York, and yet novel legal theory was applied to make it a felony, where they tried to argue that because it could be made a felony if falsifying business records was done to cover up another crime, except it wasn't done very clearly to cover up another crime, and they just basically made up, without specifying what that other crime was, that it was being done to cover up another crime. By the way, if you're wondering, oh, well, I mean, he did falsify business records then, didn't he? Well, even that's a little vague. So the case was specifically in regards to Michael Cohen paying $130,000 in hush money to Stormy Daniels in a series of monthly checks. And Michael Cohen had organized this so Trump would pay him legal fees, and then he would take those legal fees and pay Stormy Daniels. But he had told Trump, like, so imagine this is you. Your lawyer tells you, oh, this is the legal way to do a payment to keep somebody quiet, and you go along with it, and then later that person turns on you and all of a sudden says, oh, this isn't a legal way to do it. It's not like this was Trump's idea or something like that. He was just doing what his lawyer told him to. And more than that, what do you even expect him to do? Like, write down hush money to prostitute in his legal documentation? And if you're like, well, I mean, this is all downstream of Trump's own sexual impropriety, well, here's the problem. You then could be like, Kamala Harris is this symbol of virtue, and it's like, well, not really. If you look at her first major job, it was when she, a 20-year-old, was sleeping with a 60-year-old who got her that job, and has admitted on record that the fact that they were dating influenced him giving her these positions, which allowed her to get her first major prosecutor job. But again, this is a great example. You know, even if you do something that's not a felony, if you look like Trump and are Republican, then it's a felony. And it is just a ridiculous amount of bigotry and double standards at this point. By the way, you know the Harvard woman who used to be like head of Harvard,
the former president of
caught
Harvard,
in all that plagiarism. You know, she still has a tenure at Harvard and is still a professor there.
Oh, good for her, I guess.
The point being is that there's really no pushback on this stuff in a mainstream sense. While Jordan Peterson loses not just his ability to be a professor, but even his ability to practice medicine because he is center right.
Yeah, he didn't plagiarize anything, to be clear. To my knowledge, he's not accused of any academic wrongdoing, just being a conservative.
By the way, before we go into this Kamala Harris stuff, we made this Kamala Harris ad that I wish the mainstream party would use. And you get to edit it, Simone, if you want me to use an edited version. But I created a version, and it's just Kamala's face laughing in the background. And in the foreground, it says, remember when you could afford food. And I think that is one of the things that the Trump campaign isn't hitting hard enough is how bad the inflation crisis is right now and how bad the cost of living crisis is right now, because it is nightmarish. And if we have 4 more years of this, it's not going to be a problem for your family. It might be an existential risk to your family.
For those of you who live outside the US, by the way, I've discovered this new genre of YouTube video that I find to be really entertaining, where people from the EU go shopping at grocery stores in the US and freak out about how much everything costs. Just FYI.
My reaction to the bill after my first time shopping at an organic store in America.
Do I just put this in here? Feels like I'm playing Animal Crossing. Let's check out the juice section. This is a sugar-free lemonade made from real lemons. 5% of it made from real lemons. $4? I'm totally okay with this. This is like fine. Why is this lettuce $3?
I don't know if you know about this, but I just love this as a genre because I'm both obsessed with budgeting, but I'm also obsessed with grocery stores. So combine 2 of my favorite things, and plus cultural commentary. I mean, I can't stop.
All right. Oh, by the way, a really crazy thing in terms of like progressives covering this up. You today went through the entire Drudge Report. This is the day after this when we're filming this dropped.
The Drudge Report is a popular news headline consolidator website in the US.
Not a single mention anywhere did this happen.
Yeah, just about how Trump is unhinged and a criminal and terrible.
Oh, and before I go further, I should probably, people will be like, Kamala Harris isn't a DEI candidate. Didn't Trump get in trouble for saying that? And it's like, bro, she didn't even run for office. She hasn't won a single major election in her entire life. She in the Democratic primaries last time didn't make it far at all and was very unpopular. She didn't have to run for the primaries this time. She should have. Even Black Lives Matter asked for her to actually stand for election, likely because they know her actual history on crime and Black incarceration. But it's shocking to me. It's shocking to me that anyone would suggest that she is not a DEI candidate. Everyone knows the reason why if a white guy was randomly appointed to be the Democratic candidate, do you think that they would be able to hold that without having to run? Of course not. And then people can be like, oh, but no, she was vice president for 4 years. Doesn't that qualify her for the position? And it's like, okay, one of two categories. You can either go with what she's saying, which is that she's had literally nothing to do with anything that's happened for the past 4 years because she doesn't want to associate with it and is
But
going
also
all
that
over
she
the
would
place.
not do anything differently, which is something she said in recent interviews.
Well, yeah, but she's all like, oh, I'm going to change everything day one. She's not saying what she's going to change, but I'm going to change everything, all the day one stuff I'm going to change. It's like, you're in office now, supposedly. Like, what's all this experience you have if you're not doing anything, right? So either she's done literally nothing for the past 4 years, A, or B, she's completely responsible for the situation we're in right now. And if you're voting for her, you're voting for more of this. So either way, DEI candidate, okay? So the Kamala Harris plagiarism controversy centers around allegations made about her 2009 book, Smart on Crime, a career prosecutor's plan to make us safer. Oh my goodness. Here's a comprehensive overview of the situation. And she co-authored it with Joan O. C. Hamilton. Conservative activist Christopher Rufo and Austrian plagiarism hunter Dr. Stefan Weber have accused Vice President Kamala Harris of plagiarizing significant portions of her book. The main points of the allegations include at least 12 sections of the book are claimed to contain, well, not claimed to contain, shown uncontrovertibly to contain plagiarized content. I'll put something on screen here of like highlighted. It's very clearly copy and pasted. Weber reportedly found 27 cases of plagiarism in the book. Sources plagiarized include Wikipedia, wire services, press releases, and reports. Specific examples: a section apparently lifted verbatim from a press release by John Jay College of Criminal Justice, content copied from an NBC news report on high school graduation rates without proper attribution, text allegedly taken directly from Wikipedia, including a factual error present on Wikipedia at the time, and material supposedly copied from Bureau of Justice Assistant report on crime statistics for West Palm Beach. And what's so shocking to me here is this was a book on catching crime, and she's committing crime while writing a book on catching crime. It's very much like the deep state gets to do whatever it wants and isn't subject to rules, and our job is just to control and incarcerate you.
Our job is to mind our own damn business.
Yeah, I love how you pointed out that Tim Waltz's mind your own damn business phrase. Many people thought that he meant this like, don't get in like my family's sexuality's life. But what he actually means is when he's abducting your child, because a 9-year-old has decided to say that they're trans, or when because that's what he did, by the way, he made it state that, or when he creates something like this COVID lockdown policy where you can call and have your neighbors arrested for, what was it, 90 days for leaving their house during COVID, and you're being dragged from your house, or your kids are being dragged from your house. And you're like, why are you doing this? He means mind your own damn business. In those scenarios, he basically means don't ask questions of people in authority. And you can see this by the way he used the mind your own damn business line in the debate, which Simone noted. He's like, oh, he basically means don't ask me questions about why I'm doing something shady, which is similar to, the way Kamala, right? Any further thoughts before I go further?
Proceed.
And I love progressive sources trying to downplay this. It's like, she copy pasted from Wikipedia. In a published book, man. This isn't something that you can scrub over. Come on.
Apparently it is, according to...
It doesn't matter. Different rules. It's very much a Napoleon. When I say Napoleon, I mean Napoleon from Animal Farm. Some people are more equal than others. It's like, well, yes, we need laws, and I need to arbitrarily throw large numbers of people in prison, but those laws don't apply to me. I'm of the ruling class. And I mean, she's descended from plantation owners. She thinks like a plantation owner. Have I pointed out, like, when it was cheaper to pay people to do a job, she argued to keep them in prison because it was fire season and they needed the free labor, even though the free labor costs more than just paying for them. She thinks like an authoritarian. But anyway, reactions to the response. Harris's campaign has dismissed the accusations as politically motivated attacks, but they're true. What do you mean dismissed as politically motivated attacks? And the New York Times published an article that some claim it downplayed the severity of the allegations. Of course they would. They did a piece on us recently on how we're so, I love the piece on us. It was a piece on pronatalism, right? And it's like, we need a form of pronatalism that doesn't say we need to force dinks to have kids, but that says, I support your decision not to have kids, but I just want to make it easier for those who are choosing to have kids to have more kids. And I'm like, that's exactly what we say. 100 times. You can even look at our dinks video.
These are people who really, 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 really should not be having kids.
We mean this both from a genetic reason, like as we've talked about, like a dink is obviously more likely to be narcissistic, less likely to want to get back to society, etc. But in addition to that, they're not going to be good parents. Like what? You crazy nutter butters. Anyway, in December 2023, Claudia Gay faced accusations. This was the head of Harvard at the time of plagiarism in her academic work. This was, by the way, a Black woman who was head of Harvard and clearly didn't have the qualifications to get there. And I will go over proof that she didn't have the qualifications to get there, but they wanted a Black woman running things. Over her 1997 PhD dissertation, the allegations came shortly after Gay's controversial congressional testimony where she was incredibly anti-Semitic. By the way, if you're wondering, how anti-Semitic could she have been? When she was asked, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules of bullying and harassment? And she responded, it can be, depending on the context. And they tried to give her an out on this. Like the Republican was like, you can't possibly mean what you just said. And her response to that was, quote, again, it depends depending on the context, end quote. So genocide calls for the genocide of all Jews, not bullying or harassment, not even hate speech, not bullying or harassment, not cause for any form of discipline within the existing Harvard system. Horrifying. And I would remind people when we're talking about the urban monoculture or this DEI mafia, to Jews, these people are not your friends, okay? If you want to know why they're not your friends, it's because they have created a world in which all differences between groups are the result of some form of past oppression. Because Jews are disproportionately in positions of power, Jews just succeed more than other groups. That's really clear in the statistics. That means that definitionally, not only can you not have been subject to past oppression in the past, but if you say you might have been, that's pretty sus in their minds. They might not say it out loud, but they say it behind closed doors. Let me tell you what, I've been to enough of the New York dinner parties to know this at this point. And it means that you're probably architects of all the oppression. So really, really, really do not be Jews for Hitler on this, okay? These people don't like you. We are trying to just elevate this. This is their own writing here. This is their own genocide for all Jews. I really don't know if they should face any disciplinary action at all, is what they're saying here, and that is horrifying to me. Initially, Harvard's governing board, the Harvard Corporation, stood by Gay, describing the situation as a few instances of inadequate citation, rather than research the misconduct. So they refused to research it, then independent researchers researched it further. As more allegations surfaced, Harvard announced that Gay would make corrections to her dissertation and 2 academic papers. An independent review was conducted, but completed in just a few weeks, and lack of transparency raised questions about its thoroughness. So they basically did nothing. By early January 2024, the number of allegations had grown significantly, with claims of plagiarism affecting about half of Gay's published works. So she plagiarized about half of all things she had
Okay,
ever
I didn't
published.
realize that they kept investigating and they found more. That's
Well,
news
and
to me.
Harvard kept trying to shut this down. They never really investigated any of this because, again, protected class.
Well, or they maybe looked into it and initially immediately found how bad it was and didn't want more to come out. You know, they were like, let's don't pull on this thread because the
I
sweater's
don't
going to
think
fall
that's
apart.
it. I think knowing how the urban monoculture works, they just seriously didn't consider investigating someone they considered a protected class.
What's the point? It doesn't matter if she did anyway.
Yeah, well, we can't really fire a Black a black woman from president of our school, so like why investigate, right? Like she gets to do whatever she wants, break whatever rules she wants. I think this is why progressives aren't freaking out about the Kamala Harris plagiarism, even though like the urban monoculture should know like this is a big issue and should be a huge stain on her character. Whereas it's very clear we live in a classed society right now where depending on your ethnicity, you are subject to different rules. And that is really effed up. Like that is what I thought what we called racism and what we were fighting when we said we were fighting racism. But anyway,
Okay.
some of the most clear-cut cases involved verbatim copying without proper attribution, including instances where Gay allegedly lifted material from other scholars without quotation marks or citations. One example involved copying from a Bureau of Justice assistance report on crime statistics. In some cases, Gay reportedly used language from Wikipedia articles, including factual errors presented on pages at the time. So just
Oh
like the
no,
scandal,
so not only
direct copying
plagiarizing,
from
but
Wikipedia with
plagiarizing
factual errors.
incorrect. Wow. Okay.
And then people act like she resigned. They're like, on January 2nd, 2024, Gay resigned as president of Harvard University, citing plagiarism. And basically, in this resignation speech, she didn't say that she had done anything wrong. She said this was a racist conspiracy against her, but she didn't want it to hurt Harvard, which is so absolutely ridiculous. But what a lot of people don't know is, you know how she makes her money today? She still works at Harvard. She's still a professor. And again, they're like, she's tenured. And it's like, well, so was Jordan Peterson. No, I thought Jordan Peterson had been fired from his tenured position, but was functionally forced into a position where the only ethical choice for him was to quit. Over a topic similar to this, quote, first, my qualified and supremely trained heterosexual white male graduate students, and I've had many others, by the way, face a negligible chance of being offered university research positions despite stellar scientific dossiers. This is partially because of the diversity, inclusivity, and equity mandates, my preferred acronym DIE. These have been imposed universally in academia, despite the fact that university hiring committees have already done everything reasonable for all the years of my career and then some to ensure that no qualified quote-unquote minority candidates were ever overlooked. My students are also partially unacceptable precisely because they are my students. I am academic persona non grata because of my unacceptable philosophical positions. And this isn't just some inconvenience. These facts render my job morally untenable. How can I accept prospective researchers and train them in good conscience, knowing their employment prospects to be minimal? Like, you should be fired when you do certain things. And I don't think Jordan Peterson should have been fired. But what I'm just saying is being mildly center right, which is what Jordan Peterson is. He is not extreme right. He's not anywhere near as far right leaning as we are, for example. And he was fired for that. And we are considered like rhinos by some people. And Jordan Peterson is like way over there in our dust in terms of to the right. And yeah, I'm just disappointed that it's gotten this far. By the way, if you want to know how much she was making as a president at Harvard, she was making 0.88 million per year.
Whoa. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. That's a lot of money.
But this is not the only instance of this happening. Let's go over some other DEI people who got caught plagiarizing. Sherry A. Charleston, Harvard's chief diversity and inclusion officer,
Oh
of
no.
course,
That's a
got
bad look.
caught for 40 counts of plagiarism in 2024. Then we have Adel McKinn, chief DEI officer for staff at Columbia University Irving Medical Center.
Hey, maybe originality is a white thing. It's a white culture thing.
What?
Originality. You know, just like,
oh yes, we need to say that expecting originality of people, like this Smithsonian report that was like hard work and being on time or only for white people.
That's imposing white culture on
and
other
I would
people.
note, we don't believe this. We think this is a racist.
I know, I'm joking, but I'm saying that maybe that's also, it could literally be something that is believed. If literally punctuality,
I can see this start to surface.
Is associated.
Like, oh yeah, this.
Yeah, they're like, well, don't you understand? Like, that's a white cultural value. And don't you understand that most art and most everything else, we stand on the shoulders of giants. Of course we copy. That's the only way that humans iteratively improve. I could make an argument, an impassioned argument as to why plagiarism is a stupid thing to prosecute. and why.
I'm okay if we had a natural cultural shift in that direction,
Yeah.
but we are not having a natural cultural shift in that direction. We are
Mm.
having an instance in which people of certain ethnic and gender groups.
Right, where selectively plagiarism is okay and permissible,
Yeah.
right?
So Alday McKinn, Chief DEI Officer for Staff at Columbia University Irving Medical Center, accused of plagiarizing parts of his dissertation from Wikipedia and other sources. This was in 2024. So keep in mind, all of this is like just this year. Natalie J. Perry, leader of the Cultural North Star program at UCLA School of Medicine, which was a heavy DEI program, accused in April 2024 of publishing large parts of her doctoral dissertation. I can't even imagine plagiarizing a dissertation, not like homework, which is what I was terrified of plagiarizing, a dissertation.
You'd expect it from students because we've had other episodes about how just bankrupt and hollowed out the university classroom is today from a student's perspective, but professors and PhD students, I mean, these are people who have
run
invested.
departments where like our friends like Johnny Anomaly gets removed from departments from stating like mildly controversial things.
Mhm.
Like this is absolutely insane. And he's been
Yeah.
removed from running multiple departments that he started. The one that always gets me the worst is at what school was it? But anyway, he ran a department there that was a very, very popular department on like controversial philosophy. And he ended up having his department shut down and he was fired by the person who ended up being his boss, who was the lady who, by the way, a woman of color, who did all those spurious accusations around, around the Duke lacrosse lawsuit, which have since been shown to be completely wrong, that the person was completely in the wrong. This person has never apologized to the people whose lives she's ruined, and yet she continues to be promoted to running a department right now. If the world had any justice, she would be fired and never able to work again. And yet she's running a department and able to do things like in his career, which is insane. But hold on, I haven't gotten to the last person. LeVar Charleston, Chief Diversity Officer at University of Wisconsin-Madison, implicated alongside his wife, Sherry Madison, in allegations of research misconduct. So just across the board, you keep seeing this. And the question is, I think you see two things here. I think one, you see a society now where it's very clear that the legal system and the rules within universities are applied to different ethnic groups differently. And I think that no matter who you are, like this, it's very clear that this is the case. And that is racism. That is bigotry. I don't care that the left has tried to redefine racism. That's bigotry. And I don't think anyone who historically fought against bigots would see this as anything else. And I think that the institutions right now, our university campuses are fundamentally bigoted institutions that have an ethno hierarchy and a gender hierarchy. And like they need to be quote unquote decolonized. Let's put it that way. They need to be decolonized by the urban monoculture. And I think we need to lead a decolonization effort of our university system because this is horrifying that it's gotten to this level. But I also more than this, the fact that everyone's so okay with all of this plagiarism, like on the part of Kamala or on the part of these other individuals, and they just don't care. It's because they know they don't expect her to actually do the job. They're like, yeah, she's like a priest cast. She doesn't actually do her job. Like the deep state does all the work. And it's like, yeah, well, this becomes a problem when the FAA starts like hiring people based on how much they hate authority and how much they hate science, which is a real thing that happened.
Yeah, see, Tracy Woodgrain's right up about this and or our episode about this. I guess, yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, there was in US politics another issue of plagiarism associated with one of the two major presidential candidates that did come up. And there was a big kerfuffle about it. And it was when I believe a speech of Melania Trump's was partially plagiarized, if memory serves.
Yeah, and
do you remember this?
Freaked out about that. She doesn't even run anything.
Yeah, she has no decision-making capacity. She is a figurehead. And it was a speechwriter who did it. And I mean, because my understanding is Kamala Harris did not have this book ghost written. She co-wrote it with someone, correct?
She's admitted in her responses that she was responsible for the plagiarism. Because she hasn't denied it. She hasn't said, oh, my co-author did this, or oh, it's not real. She said,
yeah, you would have think that like the co-author, if being a good Democrat, would throw themselves under the bus to save her. It's interesting that she owned up to it.
No, because they haven't. It's clear to me that she was the one who did it.
Oh. That's interesting. Yeah, I guess that you're right though. I was at first thinking everyone plagiarizes and this probably isn't a big deal and that's why no one's talking about it. But the point that people freaked out when the first lady of the United States had a partially plagiarized speech. And hers wasn't from Wikipedia, including factual inaccuracies. So yeah, pretty bad.
Yeah. Well, and I was really sad to see that even the Drudge Report just didn't mention it anywhere. Like, I feel like we're in such a dystopian world right now where nobody can talk about what's true anymore. Nobody can be
Well,
like,
the left feels the same way. The left feels like, and I can tell you, so right now, we 20 something days up to the election in the US are looking at two very polarized sides collectively freaking out in a very myopic manner about the other side. On the right, there's a lot of awareness that there's manipulation in the media, really a lot of bias. And then on the left, there is genuine concern that the right is going to lose the election and then attempt some kind of revolution to undermine democracy in the US and to just take over by force or something like that. And
is there really?
yeah, there is. When we were driving this morning to go on our strategy walk, we drove by various lawn signs because we're in a key swing state and in a key swing district within that swing state.
Which is why we moved here, by the way.
Yeah, we're in a place that quote unquote matters. There were multiple signs about the integrity of democracy and despots. So yes, Malcolm.
But they're the side that didn't even vote in their own primaries. They're the side that like canceled democracy.
I know, but that's not the world that they see. And we have two sides that see basically totally different worlds and are incapable, like muggles, of seeing the other side. And I think that you need to be aware
Simone,
of that.
I think that what you're doing is you're trying to do these like the two sides are equal thing. And I don't think that that's what we're dealing with here. You know, you can't have somebody who's arguing a completely ridiculous and fictional position treated as the moral equivalent. So here's an example right now.
How can they know better when all of the media they're exposed to gives them no evidence that they could possibly
because
be
they're
wrong?
expected to try to consume media on both sides of the aisle. Like, I expect people to, at a basic level, know what's going on the other side of the aisle.
I would argue that when you look at
talk about,
okay, give me a chance here because I can present I think maybe a compelling argument. These people are only accustomed to consuming what you might call mainstream media. So their attempts to consume media on the right to take in both sides exposes them to mainstream conservative media, which I would argue is actually pretty low quality and not very good and pretty unhinged.
well, there isn't mainstream conservative media. I mean, you've got Fox News, which most conservatives would call a left-wing media outlet right now. I would call it a left-wing media outlet.
Well, that's what they're watching when they watch both sides. And
then you're just not getting real. And people can be like, what? If you think even Fox News is a left-wing media outlet, what do you think is a right-wing media outlet? And it's like, I want you to go to a list of the top 10 most popular podcasts right now. You won't find a single left-leaning podcast on the list, and you will find like 8 explicitly Republican podcasts on that list. Right-leaning media has become decentralized. It's things like this podcast, like what you're listening to between Simone and I, but we can't even go into everything. While this used to be true, it looks like recently the New York Times slipped into spot number 7 under the top 10 list. Like, if you want to see our further thoughts on this, you can go to our Antifa video where I talk about things that I don't want to talk about here because I don't want to get demonetized. But yeah.
I understand your point. But I mean, I but have some pity on the person that you met before, when we first started dating. I came from a progressive background. I consumed progressive media and I just didn't know better because
No, but you were like curious.
Yeah, but when you don't know the right person who can show you the right things, you're just not going to find these things out. And that's my argument is there's a lot of really well-meaning people who are very afraid about the integrity of democracy and human rights, et cetera, et cetera. And
I am afraid about the integrity of democracy
I
and human
know.
rights because
Yeah.
Kamala didn't run for office. She kept people in prison when they shouldn't be there. She used them for prison labor when it would have been cheaper to set them free. Her running mate is a guy who did a COVID snitch line to have people randomly arrested when they did things like leave their house, even though we now know that the science didn't back that. Kamala has said that Brazil was right to ban X because they allowed for free speech.
Most well-meaning
When they were
American voters
banning
don't know
mainstream
that.
political figures, like this is like she has said basically up front, I plan to be a dictator. That's my goal. No more free elections. Like that's like the stated platform right now. And is Trump perfect on that stuff? No, I don't think he is. But I think that that's because we are entering an era right now where we are going to need to decide in one of the upcoming elections, what do we want? Do we want a democracy that is corrupted in that it is controlled by a dictatorially, fascistly minded cabal of deep state people who think they're better than you, basically don't think you're human, don't care what you have to say, hate the poor, love the rich, and control the state? Or do we want to be controlled by a loose organization of crazy conspiracy theorists who lack the organizational competence to take over their own campaign? Like I just it's so night and day in terms of what you're looking at here, from my perspective, at least.
Mhm. I hear
Um,
you, and we've chosen our side. I'm just saying that most people aren't aware of the things that you are aware of. So they're doing the best they can with the information they have on hand.
okay, you're right.
Mhm.
Well, this is what I'd say. If you're thinking of voting in this election cycle and you're an American, I'd ask you this question. Can you actually afford, as a family, 4 more years of this? Can your family actually afford if prices continue to go up as they have over this past 4 years, over the next 4 years? And keep in mind, you could be like, that's not going to happen. Kamala Harris certainly has more sane economic policy than Joe Biden, says woman who wants to try to fix grocery store prices, which every economist agrees would cause them to skyrocket and break the economy.
Her campaign slowly walked that back. Well, we'll say very quietly walked that back after,
I'm just saying,
I'm
if you're
sure.
wondering about her economic acumen compared to the existing administration, it is not great. So,
Yeah.
can you deal with what has happened over the past 4 years happening again? Can you economically survive that as a family? And if not, what are you thinking? That's my broader take on this. But what about you, Simone? Any final thoughts?
Just that I do find it very interesting that, I guess, okay, this takes me to my whole thing about privacy, where like I am not so afraid of online privacy rules and internet privacy because I'm like, I don't have anything to hide. And the one thing that changed my mind on that, though clearly we're still not big on privacy, was people saying, hey, you may be free now, but then suddenly when some new administration is in power and someone needs to take you out, they will use that. They will use your lack of privacy as a tool against you. And I think that what's scary about the plagiarism case study in the United States, in politics and elsewhere in academia, is that this is one of those things of like, people can copy, and then they just will use the any where you can commit academic misconduct, and people will only use that selectively when they want to take you out. And I just am afraid of systems in which there's selective application of rules, because that to me is a sign of some kind of regime that is not run in a just way, that is not run as intended or as designed, but instead run with special interests. So I guess that was a very inefficient way of saying that when I see unequal and inconsistent application of standards and rules, that is a sign of deep and dangerous corruption that is meant to be the hammer of inflicting unjust policies. It's scary. It's not a good sign. It's not a great indicator.
Yeah, I can see that. Anyway, love you to death. Hopefully we can escape this situation before it gets worse, before we have to retreat. But you are an amazing woman.
Tonight, am I making you pumpkin slow cooker beef sloppy Joe
No,
sandwich in
just
a
reheat what I have in the
yeah,
fridge
but in a hot dog bun,
and heat some hot dog buns and
like
cut
2?
some scallions and I'll put them in the hot dog bun with it.
Oh, just like fresh, like 2 of them?
Yeah, something like, well, I mean, 1 is probably enough
Okay.
because I don't think we'll get more than 2 hot dogs out of this. So I can do the 2 hot dogs and then do some tomato soup.
Tomato soup. Okay. That sounds good.
By the
Tomato
way,
soup. Oh, yeah.
By the way, I'm really excited about this. We did a lot of slow cooked meat, and then Simone did was pumpkins that she bought. She made pumpkin puree, and then we mixed together the ultra slow cooked meat with the pumpkin puree to create meaty pumpkin puree. And we mixed this with a rendang sauce and a little bit of like soy sauce and some MSG and some other spices. And now we're creating like sloppy Joe hot dogs with it that are based on a pumpkin based dish. Should be very festive and seasonal. I really wanted base camp cooking to become a thing, but I realized it's too different from the main show. Maybe one day, if we become popular enough, I'll create a different show because I really love cooking.
Yeah, I feel like someday we could open a restaurant.
When we were in Vegas and we saw all the
breakfast.
restaurants themed on the reality show families, I still want to become a reality show family so we can open our Vegas restaurant that's themed on the villages.
Yeah. But I mean, no one wants to be in the restaurant business. You like never make money doing that.
No, with licensing our likenesses for the restaurant industry.
Oh, yeah.
That's my goal.
Okay.
I love you.
I love you too.
You can just sit on it.
Yeah, that's Toasty. That's just a towel. Octavian, where are you? Octavian, buddy. I don't think it's no. It's just a towel.
It's not moving.
Someone just left a mess.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think that's just a towel. Wait, why is that towel making noise?
Why is the towel laughing?
Because it's tan.
It's Octavian.
Yeah, turned in a towel. Ow! A towel was moving.
All right, let's see here. What? What are you doing here? Oh my God!
No way!
Yeah.